Hi everyone, this is Ourooba Shetewi, and my presentation is on the role of education and dialect contact in the realization of Dah and Dah in a community of Palestinian refugees in Syria. So, throughout the course of the presentation, I'll give an overview and description of the variables, rationale and aims of the investigation, talk about the current study, my methodology, data, and finally discussion and conclusion. So we'll start with an overview and description of the two variables. The is described as a voiced pharyngalized interdental fricative, whereas da is a little bit less straightforward, has gone through some changes in the history of Arabic. So historically, by classical Arabic grammarians, it was described as a voiced pharyngalized lateral fricative, whereas in modern standard Arabic and modern dialects, it's described as a voiced pharyngalized alveolar stop. So as you can see here, in classical Arabic, both variables share pretty much everything apart from place of articulation, where one is an interdental or dental and the other is a lateral. In modern Arabic dialects and the standard, they differ in both manner and place of articulation, with dah being dental fricative and dah an alveolar plosive. So what is the relationship between these two variables, and how does their map of variation, so to speak, look like in modern Arabic, both the standard and dialects? According to Alware 2003, a merger between the two variables occurs in the majority of Arabic dialects. Al-Azraqi and Watson 2010 found that a split in the realization is maintained in a handful of southwestern Saudi Arabian dialects. So as it stands, the split is only maintained in Standard Arabic and those limited dialects in southwestern Saudi Arabia. So as you can see here, Standard Arabic realizes the, and the choice of square brackets here is deliberate. I wanted Standard Arabic to be just another variety, and so this is only another realization. So the is realized as the in Standard Arabic, whereas it's realized as the in urban varieties. Zah occurs in certain lexical items and when the standard is attempted, but dah remains the default vernacular realization. In Bedouin varieties, the interdental is maintained, so dah is realized as dah, and there's that overlap between Bedouin and Standard Arabic with regards to dah. Dah is realized as dah in Standard Arabic. It's realized as dah in urban varieties, so that's the overlap here between urban and standard Arabic, at least in modern varieties. Of course, it wasn't the case in the past. Bedouin varieties realize dah as dah with the interdental fricative. Keeping Arabic and the kind of the two competing levels of prestige in Arabic, keeping that in mind, right, where urban realizations usually are viewed as more prestigious in regards to vernacular Arabic, this will influence the results and the discussion of the results, basically. So what is the aim and what are the aims and what's the rationale behind an investigation of these two variables? They aren't studied as much in sociolinguistic research. Not many studies use them as sociolinguistic variables, and certainly not in conjunction with each other. However, given the overlap in their realizations in different varieties, an examination of speakers' use of these variables can give us valuable insights into their sociolinguistic awareness as well as their linguistic competence. It also sheds light on their attitudes towards Standard Arabic and different vernacular varieties. So an investigation of these two variables is highly important. The current data and that's going to be presented in this presentation is part of a larger research project on acquisition of sociolinguistic variation by monolingual Arabic-speaking children and adolescents experiencing diaglossia and dialect contact. They're between the ages of 3 and 17. The study was carried out in a Bedouin speech community of Palestinian refugees near Damascus, Syria, and the project examined children and adolescents' use of 6 linguistic variables in relation to issues of accommodation and prestige. So this kind of like shows the geographical location of the community of study is right here, Khan al-Sheikh, and it shows the proximity to Damascus. It's about 25 kilometers away from the capital, Damascus. So the study examines the role of education and dialect contact in the realization of these two variables by children and adolescents in the speech community. As you can see, in the local dialect, both variables are realized as the introdental fricative va, whereas in the urban dialect of Damascus, they're realized primarily as da, the alveolar plosive. Again, going back to what we know about prestige in Arabic, the Damascene variants would be viewed as more prestigious with regards to vernacular Arabic. Obviously, Damascus is the capital of Syria, and as such, the dialect of Damascus is the national standard, whereas the Bedouin realizations are going to be viewed as less prestigious, right? But we know that there's another level of prestige when it comes to Arabic, and that's of the standard. So data was collected by 2 female speakers with different dialects, one local female speaker and one urban female speaker. They collected both spontaneous and semi-formal data. Sociolinguistic interviews and play sessions for the younger children were used in order to carry out the spontaneous data by both field workers in order to examine accommodation patterns if and when they emerge. So both speakers interviewed the children in one session with the urban speaker taking over from the Bedouin speaker to see if the children and adolescents would accommodate towards her, basically. A picture naming task was also conducted only by the local field worker, obviously, because we only wanted to change the context. And this was used for 2 reasons. One, to guarantee the occurrence of the variables of interest, but also it was expected to present a level of formality and to help examine participants' register variation and awareness. So moving on to the results, we'll start with the results of the overall distribution, basically, of the variance. So the is the variable that's realized as the in the local variety and primarily as the in the urban variety, but the also occurs. And as you can see, the local variant is the majority variant, the most frequent at 73%. Other here refers to non-target productions because some of the participants were 3 years of age and produced non-target productions of the variable, basically. Moving on to results of the, again, the overall distribution here of the variant shows that the local variant, the, again, the interdental fricative, is the most frequent. However, it's only at 54%. So if you see these two side by side, it gets a little confusing at this point, I must admit, because of the overlap, basically, between the different realizations. But as you can see, with the local variant, the interdental fricative is the most frequent in the realization of both variables. However, it's clearly used more with the than it is with the. And the overlap obviously occurs here with the, right? So the is um, realized as the in Standard Arabic, and so that might have something to do with it, as we will see when we get to the discussion. Um, Results in terms of accommodation show us also give some insight into these how these two variables are used. And as you can see with regards to the, speakers clearly use the local variant more with the local interviewer than they do with the urban interviewer. A paired samples t-test revealed that the difference here is actually quite significant. So there's a significant interviewer effect on the use of both the local and the urban, the stop urban variant um, between the two interviewers, with the stop urban variant used more with the local interviewer, with the, sorry, urban interviewer, and obviously less with the local interviewer. Accommodation in the realizations of the also gives kind of like a similar picture here. Again, speakers are using the local variant a lot less with the urban interviewer, and the interviewer effect is again found to be significant with regards to realizations of the across the two interviews, basically, or across the two interviewers. So interlocutor effect is found to be significant again. So here again you can see side by side, the local variant is used with, as a realization of both variables. It's used more frequently with the local interviewer than it is with the urban interviewer. Yeah, but there is a slight difference again between the and the in the realization, even with the local interviewer. The as a realization of the is used more so, or the is used more so as a realization of the than it is as a realization of the, just in general, as we saw before with the overall distribution. Moving on to register variation, we don't really see much of a difference with regards to the, and here is where we have the overlap with Standard Arabic to start with, right? So there isn't really a huge difference. In fact, it's used less in the picture naming task, not as you would expect, basically. But the difference is very, very minuscule. It's used as 78.7% in the interview, and at 77.7% in the picture naming task. So there's really no significance here. With regards to the, on the other hand, it's a completely different story. Here, the overlap is, or there's no overlap between the local variety and Standard Arabic. The is realized as the in Standard Arabic, obviously, but it's realized as the interdental fricative in the local dialect of the community. But as you can see here, speakers use their local variant a lot less in the picture naming task, which suggests that they are aware of the standard variant here. So here, obviously, with accommodation, we were looking at the and the as realizations based on local versus urban, but here it's local versus standard. And so, as you can see, there's a very highly significant difference between the picture naming task and the interview in regards to the realization of the, where the standard variant is used a lot more in the picture naming task than it is in the interview context. The speaker is the same, right? Just a reminder. So again, seeing it kind of like side by side, we see that with regards to the, even though we don't really see much of a difference, but you can see that the non-standard variant, so to speak, the alveolar stop, is not used very much in either context, right? Whereas with regards to in the realization of the standard variant, so the alveolar stop, is used a lot more in the picture naming task. It's actually used more than 50%, more than half of the time in the picture naming task, which obviously suggests that level of awareness is there of that split. So moving on to the discussion, Alware suggests that the as a realization of either variable is highly stigmatized and is losing grounds to the because it overlaps with the Bedouin and urban and rural variants. So this is with regards to the Levant more specifically, but it can apply obviously to other dialects as well. However, results from the study reveal that the is actually the more frequent variant for both variables. However, that's not the end of the story. A closer investigation reveals very interesting patterns of variation and indicates that these speakers have a high level of sociolinguistic competence and awareness. So as we saw before, the as the local variant the is used at 78% as or almost 79% as a realization of the. So where there's an overlap between the standard and the local dialect, it's used most with the local interviewer and least with the urban interviewer at only a little over 50%. This obviously indicates that these speakers have that awareness of the sociolinguistic status of these different realizations in vernacular varieties, and suggests that there is an influence of dialect contact with Damascene Arabic on their speech, and that influence can be seen through their convergence to the urban interviewer. In contrast, we see that although the local variant is still the most frequent as a realization of da, it's only used at a little over 50%. It's most used with the local interviewer at 65%, so again less than it's used as a realization of da, and it's least used with the urban interviewer at 44.1%, so less than half the time basically, which suggests that these two variables aren't really perceived or used as one variable as would be expected with mergers. So they are separate. There is a split in the repertoire and in the awareness realization of these speakers. Da is obviously readily available in their linguistic inventory, even though it's not part of the traditional dialect. And again, they are obviously aware of the sociolinguistic status of these different realizations. So if we assume that it's only dialect contact, that it's only the prestige of vernacular Arabic that's influencing their choices, why isn't it used more as a realization of the, like it is as a realization of da, right? Which suggests that another factor is at play here. That would be the influence of Standard Arabic, which comes through education. This disparity in the variation across the two variables shows that there's an obvious awareness of the standard split, and shows an influence of Standard Arabic on their choices and their realization. This is further corroborated by results on register variation, especially in the case of da, as we've seen before. It seems that these speakers may not attribute as much stigma to the interdental fricative as a realization of the, as suggested by Elware 2003, as it seen as the correct realization, so to speak, and shows that both dialect contact and education have an influence on these young speakers' linguistic choices in the community. It clearly also shows that there is a high level of awareness of the two competing levels of prestige in Arabic, and that they are both at play. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.